November 15, 2024, Honorable VP Kamala Harris. The White House Office of the Vice President, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. 2500. Dear Madam Vice President, this is my second duty to warn letter regarding hacking of the 2024 presidential election. The first letter on November 7 was directed to Commonwealth of Pennsylvania officials. Both warnings are made per DNI Clapper's 2015 directive to all agencies and contractors associated with intelligence and financial agency technologies to warn of suspicions of hacking. Professionally, I have worked as the CEO or CTO at 7 high-technology firms, including 2 which specialized in hacking and counter-hacking operations. My clients have included numerous governments: DoD, DHS, DEP, of state, F-100 financials, and F-500 industrials. I am a lifelong Republican who has long placed service and participatory democracy over party. In government, I have twice been invited to SOCOM to give lectures on electronic warfare and techniques to find terrorist money laundering, and gave a keynote speech of the National Counter-Intel Summit on this same topic. I served as an after-action reviewer of communications and data failures on 9/11 under the direction of Jim Woolsey and FDNY Commissioner Scoppetta, and later co-wrote multiple hacking risk analysis of smart grid technologies for the Obama administration. You should reverse your concession, call for both a full investigation of criminal activity, and demand hand recounts in all 7 swing states. In my professional view, there are multiple and extremely clear indications the presidential vote was willfully compromised. I wholly agree with the public letter of Duncan Buell et al. Of November 13th stating they believe there is a possibility of hacking and calling for hand recounts. https freespeech4people.org WP Content Uploads 2024 Den 11 Letter to VP Harris 111324 PDF. This letter's clear call to action is commendable, but its cautious tone may belie the severity of what I believe has happened. In my view, it is a near certainty the results have been changed at a scale which reversed the U.S. presidential election. They imply there is a chance a hand recount will show you won more votes. I am stating a hand recount will most likely show you did win. Both letters call on you to act. In my view, a capable and skilled series of exploits, electronic tools, and hacks were used to change the presidential vote in all 7 swing states. These activities have reversed the outcomes in at least Arizona, Michigan, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. I will lay out the basics of the attack, starting with unusual elements within the results. I will then outline 2 processes which could have been followed to insert these false results into the system. Finally, I will outline how I would recommend investigating unusual elements within the results. The results of the attack are improbable in the extreme and well tailored to the sole benefit of your opponent. Approximately 600,000 votes are for Donald Trump, but with no down-ballot choices. These are either inserted bullet ballots for the presidential race or manipulated data fields. They are surgically added to totals in limited jurisdictions and within only the 7 swing states. This historically unprecedented set of numbers found in the 2024 swing states is absent in every other state. In AZ, MI, NC, and WI, the effect of these drop-off votes reverses the voter's will, and even more improbably, always pushes the winning margin beyond the mandatory recount numbers. It is a result too perfect for belief. It is a bespoke and programmed outcome. In other states, including PA and NV, removing these strange and bespoke added votes, it appears Donald Trump may have won the cast votes, but within a margin which would force recounts. The inserted votes raise his totals to avoid any scrutiny during mandatory recount results, which would have slowed his claim on the presidency. In GA and FL, the same pattern exists with unclear impact on the results. This attack is not technically difficult. It is modest in scale. It would require modest and common computer programming skills, access to 10 to 100 tabulators or to the handful of facilities programming them in advance, a credible database of voter IDs of non-voters around which to create false ballots, perhaps as few as 1, but more likely 3 to 5 human program managers, access to e-bowl book data during the election to determine who had not voted, possibly human access to some tabulators during counting. If I was asked to lead this hack, I would expect to have a core team of 6 to 10 people and operating costs under $10 million with a timeline of 3 to 12 months. The tell: a historically absurd number of Trump-only bullet ballots or undervote ballots. There are always a handful of voters who cast a vote in one race which they care about and do not make other selections on the ballot. These are called bullet ballots. In presidential races since 1980, these bullet ballots rarely account for more than 1% of the total votes, including in Mr. Trump's winning 2016 election and losing 2020 election, and when they do it, warrants further investigation. In 2024, in the 43 non-swing states, bullet ballots make up a nominal less than 1%. In the 7 swing states, the numbers are so high to be unbelievable, unprecedented, and demanding of further investigation. Here is analysis from totals as of late November 12th. Here are the unprecedented results of drop-offs in the 2 western swing states. AZ, 123,007.2% of Trump's total vote. Enough to reverse the outcome. NV, 43,005.5% of Trump's total vote. Enough to exceed recount threshold. It is my belief these 2 states have illegally added votes. For comparison, examine Trump's 2024 results in 3 states which border AZ and NV. They have equally passionate Trump supporters, but have the normal levels of drop-off or bullet ballots. ID under 2K, 0.03% of Trump's total. OR under 4K, 0.05% of Trump's total. UT under 1K, 0.01% of Trump's total. In the case of Idaho and Utah, Mr. Trump was a runaway winner and had no need to add votes. In the case of Oregon, Ms. Harris was a runaway winner, and adding votes to Trump's total would add risk without adding value. The same pattern of large numbers of drop-off votes or bullet ballots exists in the totals of MI, NC, PA, WI. North Carolina is the most extreme. The public results indicate over 350,000 voters cast a ballot for Trump, and no other race making up over 11% of Trump's voters in NC drop-off votes or bullet ballots. Hack Part 1. Creating the pool of bullet ballot voters. There are 2 possible methods to execute this attack. The simple version would only manipulate electronic totals, and hand-counting the target precincts would discover this. The second involved e-pollbook hacking and introducing bullet ballots. This would add the need to compare the e-pollbook timestamps to find possible bad actors or other sources for these anomalous votes. When Mr. Musk announced his $1 million lottery for people to go online and sign a pledge to vote for Trump, I became personally suspicious of why such a promotion would be done. I signed up to see what information he wanted and what the pledge actually stated. He did not want to know people's socials or send them texts. To sign up, you had to provide your street address. That was all they cared about. Once they had the people's names and street address, this would allow for building a pool of ghost voters who could logically be marked for fake ballots, structured in a manner which matched e-pollbook and precinct data. You, as a member of law enforcement, understand criminals need certain preconditions to act. A database of pledged supporters with street addresses is required for this hack. Law enforcement should immediately find the team of programmers who pulled the lottery data capture. They will find those programmers immediately parsed the data into a system based on voting precincts and created macros to constantly update the pledged lists of who had cast a vote and who had not. The programmers likely did not know they were working on a system to be used to steal the election. When confronted with that fact, law enforcement would likely gain cooperating witnesses. Musk's team used this system to build a list of voters pledged to vote for Trump. This list could also be used to make a ghost ballot voter list. E-pollbook data is nearly always linked to the internet, and in many jurisdictions this link was being made in real time via Mr. Musk's Starlink or any available wireless network. Throughout the day, Musk's team could compare existing turnout models to likely outcomes based on well-established voter profile databases versus the actual voter turnout coming in from the e-pollbooks. They would have been able to have a very good estimation in the closing hours of polls how many votes short Trump would likely be at the tabulation level. They would also have exact lists of the pledged voters for Trump and would know who had not shown up. The pledged voters who did not vote became the bullet ballots. With any network connection to the e-pollbooks or via other compromised connectivity, they could be marked as voted. Hack Part 2. Matching the tabulation to the e-poll books. The exact number of added voters to the e-poll books as having voted would have to match the tabulation process. This attack could have been done in at least two different ways. The easiest method to execute Phase 2 is also the easiest to discover by hand recount. In a few jurisdictions where the tabulators either had network connectivity, approved or otherwise, or where a person on the team had physical access to the tabulation machine, the Trump votes that were added to the e-poll books would need to be added to the tabulators, at which point the e-poll books and the tabulation totals would match, having been digitally stuffed with demographically credible voters for Trump. But there will be no paper ballot for these votes. A hand recount will quickly discover the fraud. As I write this letter, several hundred people are self-organizing on Reddit and other forums. They include data scientists, statisticians, and legal experts. They are examining the precinct-level data of every swing state, and by Monday, these teams will have lists of many precincts where these historically unprecedented Trump bullet ballots occur. The highest likelihood is that those ballots don't actually exist. Those votes were electronically created but have no paper. This would be easily proven with a hand recount. A second possibility involves the same compromise as described above, but is then combined with human ballot stuffing or ballot substitution at tabulation to match the e-poll book numbers. This possibility is raised as it appears these historically unprecedented bullet ballots fall heavily in a few counties. Maricopa County, AZ, seems to be the source of the vast majority, perhaps nearly all, of the AZ bullet ballot voters for Trump. If these ballots were introduced, it would require co-conspirators working inside the tabulation center. I appreciate that many people, even sophisticated people outside this field, think this hack is an impossible task. It is not. Just 8 weeks ago, the world watched a vastly larger and more complicated one. Unknown hackers intercepted over 3,000 communications devices, over 24 months destined for use by Hamas across the entire Mideast. The devices all had additional software, hardware, and explosives inserted. The devices were then delivered to users and functioned normally for months until the hackers triggered the inserted series of exploits and explosions. This hack, the entire world witnessed, was orders of magnitude more complicated than introducing Trump bullet ballots into, at most, 100 tabulation locations. I have personally managed full year-long operations in which hundreds of credit card point-of-sale devices were rebuilt with added hardware and software and inserted in order to discover fraudsters and money laundering. No one knew we were there. The users never were aware. The devices did their normal job processing credit cards for merchants, while they also did a hack job and helped my team and I root out criminals. The access, technical difficulty, and scale of the election hack I am describing is less than either of these, but the effect is vastly greater, and the FBI has excellent people who could address this very quickly. Lastly, this hack methodology may or may not have some correlation with the series of bomb threats called in by Russian-affiliated assets. The use of distraction or diversion of this kind is common. My first thought was, and my thinking remains, these bomb threats were called into tabulation centers and precincts where the hackers had already planned to conduct ghost bullet ballot introductions. I believe they wanted a disruption in the chain of custody, so lawyers could claim after the hacking events that the chain of custody on the ballots was flawed. The creation of the false argument of a broken custody chain would be used as a pretext to prevent hand recounting, as hand recounting would not match the Trump-favorable result. However, by a reverse of that logic, any jurisdiction which was subject to a bomb threat was forced to break standard operating procedure. This alone should be grounds for you to ask for a hand recount. Lastly, I have been advised by an attorney that Arizona and Georgia have mechanisms in place for members of the public to demand a recount, but only you have the ability to demand a recount across all the jurisdictions of concern. A final formal note. This is principally a duty-to-warn letter. It is also a fulfillment of my constitutional oath of office as possibly the lowest-level sworn office of public trust in America. I was appointed by my township to serve as a local parks commissioner. I am the public appointee to the Mount Nittany Conservancy, a nature reserve. I have spent the last 4 years variously overseeing how public funds are spent on sports fields, kids' playgrounds, hiking trails, and bike paths. To do this, I must make annual conflict and financial disclosures, and I must swear nearly the same oath you did. I am under the sworn obligation to defend our nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic, which I am honored to do. I will continue to investigate with a growing group of volunteers. We are also planning to